So usually when we think about communication, there's this underlying assumption of a bridge being built, you know?
Right, yeah, like an exchange.
Exactly. You have a thought, you encode it into words, and you send it across this gap, and the other person receives it. It's supposed to be this, this magical foundational connection of human society.
It's what keeps us together.
Yeah. But then you encounter these moments in life, usually in the depths of some profound personal crisis, where that bridge, it doesn't just fail, it actually becomes a weapon.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You try to communicate your pain, and it feels less like building a bridge and more like screaming underwater. You're expending all this air, all this energy, and absolutely nothing intelligible is reaching the surface.
Right, and the very act of trying to be understood actually becomes more damaging than the isolation itself.
Exactly. And that brings us to our mission today. Welcome to the deep dive. I know you're here listening right now because you have this drive to gain deep knowledge and explore these complex perspectives without getting overwhelmed.
Right, cutting through the noise.
Yeah, and today we're exploring a radical Japanese text that asks a terrifying question. What happens when you finally stop screaming? What happens when a human being completely gives up on being understood?
It's a really intense premise.
It is. The text is titled The Loneliness of Not Being Understood and the Heart Tired of Explaining, and it outlines a psychological state where a person consciously steps into a world where emotions essentially disappear. Now, it would be incredibly easy to just frame this as, a tragic story about severe depression, but looking at the source material, it's actually an exploration of an extreme, almost philosophical survival mechanism.
It really is. And I mean, to a modern society that's completely obsessed with concepts like finding your purpose or living your truth or practicing this relentless empathy, this author's journey is going to sound pretty chilling
Oh, absolutely.
because we're so conditioned to believe that sharing our burden lightens it. But this text reveals a path to a very specific, almost bulletproof kind of peace.
Yeah.
And it comes from doing the exact opposite. It's an alternative way of existing that forces us to question the biological and psychological cost of our own emotional connections.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the catalyst for this emotional shutdown isn't a single traumatic event, right? It's a slow drain.
Yes, exactly.
The source points to the sheer agonizing exhaustion of translation. And by translation, I mean the mental gymnastics required to convert your inner agony into a language someone else can digest.
Right, the cognitive load.
Yeah, think about how exhausting it is in your everyday life just to explain to a manager why you're burned out.
Oh, definitely.
You're constantly modulating your tone so you don't sound too negative. You're picking the most professional words. You're trying to make your fatigue fit into their corporate framework.
Yeah, keeping it palatable.
Exactly. Now multiply that cognitive load by 1,000 for deep existential emotional trauma.
And the author describes this with such a visceral intensity, likening the process to tearing open your own wounds with your bare hands.
Oh.
Because attempting to share your deepest suffering isn't just a matter of opening your mouth and talking. It requires this immense, draining energy to curate your own pain.
Right, you have to package it.
Yeah, you're digging up dark memories, figuring out a narrative structure that makes sense to an outsider, and carefully adjusting your emotional frequency so you don't, totally overwhelm the listener.
Yeah, you're managing their feelings while you're the one suffering.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You're actively re-traumatizing yourself, dragging yourself backward through the mud, entirely for the benefit of the person sitting across from you.
And the devastating part is the return on that massive energetic investment. You do all that work, you tear open the wound, and you get these careless, well-meaning responses.
That's the worst.
People nod and they say, I understand completely, or they try to normalize it with, well, everyone goes through hard times, you just have to push through.
Right, which completely misses the point.
Yeah. The text argues that this doesn't offer comfort at all. It trivializes the person's life-draining struggle. Imagine you're experiencing a Category 5 hurricane. Your roof is ripped off, the structural integrity of your life is collapsing. But to get someone else to understand, you have to downgrade the description to, like, a heavy rainstorm.
Right.
And they reply with, yeah, I hate getting wet too, I totally get it.
Oh, that's such a perfect analogy. Because that response immediately highlights the unbridgeable gap between the two experiences.
Yeah, it doesn't build a bridge, it burns it.
It does. It makes the isolation so much sharper than if the person had just stayed quiet in the first place.
Yeah.
And this repeated invalidation forces a brutal but logical calculation in the author's mind.
What do you mean?
Well, they realize that true understanding cannot come from a friend or a partner or a therapist who hasn't lived their specific nightmare. True understanding requires someone who has walked the exact same edge of despair.
Which is incredibly rare.
Exactly. Since finding that statistical anomaly is practically impossible, the author makes a definitive choice. They decide to become their own sole confidant. They completely withdraw from the arena of seeking empathy.
But, I mean, making that choice creates a massive psychological paradox. You can't just flip a switch and turn off a lifetime of human conditioning.
Right, we're a social species.
Exactly. How does the author stop their own brain from seeking out the very empathy they've sworn off? Because life carries on. You still have to interact with people.
Right, you go to the grocery store, you go to work.
Yeah. So to survive this, the author has to entirely withdraw from the concept of empathy itself. They stop seeking it and they stop offering it.
And what's fascinating here is the metaphor the source uses for this phase. It describes seeking empathy as standing on a blade.
Standing on a blade. Wow.
Yeah, think about the physics of a blade. There is zero surface area to rest on. The moment you ask someone to hold your pain, you're putting your entire emotional weight on a razor-thin edge.
Right.
If the other person moves even a fraction of an inch, if their attention drifts, or if they say the wrong thing, you get cut deeply.
So the only way to stop bleeding is to step off the blade entirely. And the author does this by anchoring themselves to a fundamental, undeniable truth about human emotion, which is its impermanence.
Right, the fleeting nature of it all.
Yeah, the text notes that joy, searing anger, crippling sadness, none of it lasts. Neurochemically, an emotion is just a wave that washes over you and eventually recedes.
Yeah.
Once you truly internalize that every feeling has an expiration date, investing your precious, limited energy into riding those waves becomes utterly pointless. Like, why exhaust yourself screaming on a roller coaster when you know it just ends back at the station?
It's a really stark way to look at it, but medically, what we're looking at here is a phenomenon psychologists might call protective dissociation, but taken to a philosophical extreme.
Okay, right.
When the brain is subjected to repeated, unsustainable emotional exhaustion, it literally starts crooning those neural pathways. It's a defense mechanism.
It's shutting down non-essential systems.
Exactly. The brain realizes that emotional investment consistently yields pain, so it cuts the power to the emotional centers to protect the biological organism. To an external observer, this looks like a tragic loss of humanity or, severe clinical depression. But internally, the author views this emotional flatlining as a highly effective shield. If nothing matters, nothing can hurt you.
But the physical reality of this shift is deeply unsettling. The source describes the world literally losing its saturation. The environment becomes a gray, desaturated landscape.
Yeah, literally losing color.
Right. It isn't just an emotional numbing. It bleeds into how the physical senses are processed. Basic physical sensations become purely mechanical.
It is a state of absolute biological reductionism. I mean, take the act of eating a delicious meal. For most people, that's a sensory joy, right? An experience woven with memory and culture.
Yeah, comfort food.
Exactly. But for the author, it is just a mechanical process of passing easy-to-swallow fuel through the throat to maintain the biological machine. The brain has stopped synthesizing the sensory input into pleasure.
And sleep undergoes the exact same transformation. It isn't a cozy retreat at the end of a long day. It isn't a comfort. It's just physical prep for the next day's survival.
Just recharging the battery.
Yeah. And even physical pain, like a severe stomachache, is stripped of its narrative. There is no internal monologue saying, why is this happening to me? This hurts so much, I can't take it.
Right.
The pain is just accepted as a biological reaction to a physical cause. It's just a warning light, blinking on a dashboard, noting an error in the machine.
They're still experiencing the sensory data of the pain.
Yeah.
But they've completely severed the emotional story we usually attach to it.
Yes.
Our suffering usually comes from the friction between how we want the world to be and how it actually is. By dropping any expectation of how the world should be, the author removes the friction. They endure the sensation without the suffering.
But if daily life has just become this process of physical maintenance, fueling the machine, resting the machine, ignoring the blinking dashboard lights, how does this person actually function in society?
That's the big question.
Right. I mean, you still have to pay taxes, you still have neighbors, you still have inevitable conflicts, you can't just evaporate. So how does a person in this state handle the everyday friction of existence?
Well, this shift in daily mechanics completely alters their perception of time and conflict. Because the person is no longer blinded by the immediate heat of emotional attachment, their perspective zooms out dramatically.
Okay.
The source claims they can clearly see the beginning, middle, and eventual decay of any situation before it even unfolds.
Oh, wow. So they're seeing the whole life cycle of a problem before the first word is even spoken.
Precisely. If a conflict arises, say a dispute at work, or a misunderstanding with an acquaintance, they feel zero urge to fix it.
Really? None at all.
None. I mean, our entire society is built on a proactive, problem-solving mindset, but their logic is based on this massive expansion of the timeline.
Right, zooming out.
Yeah, they argue that on a scale of 10 years, 50 years, or a human lifetime, almost all interpersonal drama vanishes without a single trace.
That
Whether you sweat and bleed to solve the dispute today, or whether you entirely ignore it, time will wash it away regardless. The outcome is the same, so expending energy on the friction is illogical.
The text uses an incredibly evocative image for this state of mind. It describes the author as watching the never-ending stage play of life from the very last row of the audience, completely expressionless.
I love that metaphor.
It's so powerful. Imagine being in a massive theater. Down on the stage, under the bright lights, the actors are screaming, crying, falling in love, fighting over resources, and the author is sitting alone in the pitch black of the back row.
Right.
They can see the movement, they can hear the noise, but they are so far removed from the stage that the drama feels entirely artificial.
It's a complete detachment from the human narrative. They recognize that the people on stage believe the play is real, but from the back row, the author clearly sees the cardboard sets and the script they're following.
Here's where it gets really interesting, but wait, I have to challenge this premise.
Yeah,
Humans are biologically wired for empathy.
we are.
We have mirror neurons that literally fire when we see someone else take an action or experience an emotion. You can't just selectively turn off your nervous system through willpower alone. Or
That's a very good point.
even sitting in the darkest back row of that theater, staring at a gray world, there has to be something that triggers a pulse for this author.
Yep.
Is the well completely 100% dry?
So the text actually addresses that exact biological reality.
Mm-hmm.
The well is not entirely dry.
Yeah.
There is one surprising, highly specific exception to this numbness, and it reveals a lot about the author's underlying philosophy.
Okay. What gets through the armor?
The author feels a faint stir of emotion when watching someone else deeply struggle with a problem and then successfully fight their way back to their feet.
Oh.
Yeah, when they witness raw resilience, someone hitting rock bottom, marshaling their life force and overcoming a hurdle, they feel something.
So they feel absolutely nothing for their own physical existence, but they are moved by someone else's resilience. The source compares this feeling to a drop of water soaking into cracked earth. That is a stunning way to describe a mind that has been completely desiccated of emotion.
It really is.
It implies that the capacity to feel is still there, buried deep underground. It just hasn't rained in years.
Right. They watch this muddy, chaotic, raw human energy vicariously. But the text adds a crucial layer of context here. They watch this struggle with an affectionate nostalgia.
Nostalgic.
Yes. They're looking at this resilient person the way an elderly person might look at a child running around a playground.
Oh, I see.
They recognize the fiery, desperate energy required to fight back, but they know with absolute certainty that they've permanently aged out of that stage. They will never possess that kind of vital energy again.
Wow. It's like watching a home video of a younger version of humanity. You smile at the innocence of it, but you know you can never step back into that frame. And because they view resilience with this detached nostalgia, they absolutely refuse to tackle their own life events as problems to be solved. They look at the way we set up hurdles, career goals, relationship milestones, personal growth targets, and view it as a purely artificial human obsession.
Just a game we play.
Yeah, we invent these problems just so we can feel the rush of solving them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it leads to a profound psychological concept, the ultimate ego death.
Right.
The author has systematically dismantled the main character syndrome that almost every human being carries. We all have this internal narcissistic narrative that our life is a unique, precious movie and we are the star.
Yes, our struggles are profound, our victories are meaningful.
Right, but the author has completely stripped that away.
But if you aren't the main character of your own life, what do you see yourself as?
You see yourself as a tiny, highly insignificant endpoint of a massive, ancient chain of DNA.
Just a biological speck.
Exactly. The author strips away all the societal titles. They aren't a worker, a sibling, a citizen, or an artist. They liken their existence to a nameless weed growing on a deserted mountain path.
Wow.
or a tree just blowing in the wind, or water naturally obeying gravity and flowing downhill.
So they view themselves as just a natural phenomenon obeying the laws of physics and biology. There's no special destiny, no grand purpose.
Not at all.
If they disappear tomorrow, the mountain remains deserted, the wind keeps blowing, and the ecosystem barely registers the loss. For most people, that level of insignificance induces sheer existential panic.
Oh, totally.
But the author finds absolute, impenetrable comfort in it. Which brings us to the culmination of this mental journey. By abandoning the ego, by stepping entirely out of the human drama, what is the final psychological result?
Well, the result is a state of absolute, unshakable peace, built on a foundation of cold truth. In the text, the author admits that they used to agonize over the meaning of life.
Like most of us do.
Right, they chased self-realization, they read the books, they desperately tried to figure out why they were put on this earth. But the ultimate breakthrough was the realization that life inherently has zero meaning.
So the expectation of meaning was the trap all along.
Precisely. Trying to force meaning onto a biologically random, inherently meaningless existence was the actual source of their despair.
Yeah.
When you demand that your suffering must have a purpose, you suffer twice. Once from the event, and once from the failure to find a reason for it.
The relief of dropping that demand is described in the text as a kind of floating consciousness.
Yeah, a great visual.
The author literally describes feeling like their mind has detached and is floating in the air above their body. They are just a ghost haunting a biological machine, watching this moving mass of flesh breathe, eat, and excrete.
And because they have become a passive observer of their own machine, the fear of death completely evaporates.
Right, because there's no ego left to die.
Exactly. When the machine eventually breaks down, it breaks down. It's just biology running its course. But conversely, this state also eliminates any profound gratitude for life.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, there is no marveling at a sunrise or writing in a gratitude journal. It's a state of pure, neutral existence.
They have completely abandoned the heavy, suffocating pressure of needing to fulfill a role in society. They don't need to be a productive employee. They don't need to be an attentive partner. They don't need to leave a legacy. They just need to metabolize oxygen until the machine stops.
Right. To synthesize this entire journey, we're looking at a conscious, intentional psychological evolution.
Yeah.
It begins in the desperate, exhausting desire to be understood by others, and when the cognitive and emotional cost of that translation becomes too high, the individual consciously severs their emotional ties.
They protect themselves.
Yes, they prune their own neural pathways to protect themselves from the blade of empathy. This results in a state where one is simply a biological observer of their own physical existence, devoid of ego, and stripped of the need for meaning.
It's an intense shift.
It undeniably is a gray world, entirely stripped of color, but it's also a world entirely stripped of suffering.
So what does this all mean? It makes you look at our modern culture in a completely different light. You are constantly bombarded by the demands of empathy.
Oh, everywhere you look.
Right. Social media demands you care about every global crisis. Your workplace demands you bring your whole authentic self to the office. The self-help industry demands you find your passion and optimize your purpose.
It is relentless.
It is. This text offers a radical, almost terrifying alternative. It highlights just how much of our daily bone-deep exhaustion comes from the societal demand to constantly participate in the emotional theater of life.
It really forces us to ask a very uncomfortable question about our own lives. How much of our finite energy are we spending trying to translate our internal state for an audience that simply lacks the capacity or the shared experience to ever truly understand it?
Exactly. Which brings us back to where we started today. That feeling of screaming underwater, expending all your air, just hoping someone on the surface hears the bubbles.
Yeah.
As you go about the rest of your day, dealing with the friction of emails, relationships, and the pressure to perform, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
If our society's constant obsession with finding meaning, securing purpose, and forcing empathy is actually the root of our deepest, most exhausting anxieties, what would happen to your own stress levels if, just for one single day, you gave yourself permission to have absolutely no meaning?
Wow.
What if, just for today, you stepped out of the theater, dropped the script, and existed purely as a natural phenomenon, like the wind through the trees or water flowing downhill needing no explanation at all?